Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Jay's Iyagi, where I share my audio journey, experience, and story. Now, today I'm going to talk to you guys about 3 best tube amplifiers I've heard regardless of price range. Now, this is a difficult one because I've heard so many tube amplifiers that I loved in the time I was in this hobby, but reviewing the 40th anniversary triangle speakers I have in the back, which should be released before this video, hopefully. Go check that out. It made me want to talk about tube amplifiers because I wish I had the tube amplifiers I'm about to talk to you right now to pair up with these speakers. Some of them I did, but we'll talk more about that in the later videos. So anyways, the rule of thumb here is that I've had to hear it myself for enough of a time duration, so not in shows and stuff like that, enough, at least in my system or back when I was in the store, enough of a time for me to assess and really understand the sound signature and really, so that I can really talk about it, right? So that's the rule. So I've noticed that there's a lot of tube amplifiers in the market that is really great for the money, really great performance. And I know a lot of people are going to comment in the description saying, hey, you should have included this. But if you have experience with it, please go ahead and let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you guys, but this is what I'm going to talk about. So first up, the legendary Marantz 8B amplifier. This is a EL34 based tube amplifier. And I would say that this was something special because I've had it with my JBL system, with my Altec system, and so mostly vintage systems, and it really made the loudspeakers open up in the high frequency. And it's the first time I really fully appreciated what people meant by saying sparkle and sweetness on the top end without being bright. Because let me take you back a little bit, right? So my sound signature preference has changed over the years, depending on how many years I've consumed with my ears, right? So naturally, my reference point and my sound preference has changed, but around the time that I heard the Marantz 8B, I still liked a more rolled off, soft dome, not bright speakers, soft sounding speakers, and so on. So when I got the Marantz 8B, I've had the JBL 240 Ti, if I remember correctly, and it had a titanium metal dome tweeter. And those really bright, like when you pair it up with a solid state, which I had, I believe the Meitners at the time, really as great as the Meitner monoblocks were, geez, the high frequency on the JBLs were really beaming and shrill to my ears. Probably not as much as, if I experience it today, but back then my preference, you have to keep in mind, was on the warmer, darker side of things, right? So I really didn't like it. And that's one reason I decided to get the Marantz 8B from a technician at the time. So this technician had the Marantz 8B sitting in storage for a long period of time, started up with a variac, which means you send low signal, voltages to kind of warm up the unit instead of just shocking it and plugging it in and potentially blowing the amplifier, because you want to slowly turn up amplifiers that's been sitting for a long period of time and not in play. So a little tip there. So after that, played it for hours. And in the beginning, it was nothing special because it was still warming up after not being played for God knows how long, years. But then after, I would say about 200 hours or so, it started to really come to life and really made those JBLs sound so spacious and so holographic, and it was so lush, and the mid-range, the vocals were like just so, like, I have dreams about them. Like, they were so vivid and silky, like if they were performing just for me, intimate at the same time, but with a large sound stage and holographicness. I heard things behind me for the first time, and the high frequency was no longer bright, but sparkle and sweet. I felt tingles in my ears, not in an unpleasant, like bright, brittle way, but it was like as if someone was tickling my ears, and I felt like the sweetness on the top end. So I finally understood what people meant by sweetness on some of their systems that I really didn't get until I heard the Marantz 8B. And then, of course, I've heard other stuff that kind of, got me, like the LS35A and so on, that made me understand what sweetness was further. So that was the first time I had the Marantz 8B and the amplifier that I still miss to this day. Of course, the bass was a little bit lackluster on that tube amplifier, which is expected, but the 240 Ti was not shy of bass, so I really didn't mind that it wasn't, pumping and, beating on the woofers as much as my minors did with those speakers. So overall, a great system, a great sound system that I really miss. Now, the second up is something that I reviewed not too long ago, and that is the Decware ZMA. My God, very similar to the Marantz 8B experience I've had. Really great mid-range and high frequency, a little bit lackluster in the on the bass, not the mid-range, but man, the mid-range and high frequency was impeccable. I would say even better than the Marantz 8B as I remember it. Just silky, just nuanced. Just imagine Marantz 8B being redesigned by a competent engineer today. That's what the ZMA was. Now, I'll link to that review in the description below. Now, a little bit about the bass comment that I made earlier. Of course, the bass is dependent on the tube and the gear itself. And of course, Steve from Decware is a great engineer, and he can help with that if you want a better bass definition and texture. But the ZMA is like, I was afraid to touch it because the mid-range and high frequency was so great that I didn't want to do anything to it. That's how great the mid-range and high frequency is on the ZMA. And of course, you can add a subwoofer for the bass, which is not a big deal. But yeah, really great, modern, yet has that vintage, real point-to-point, using quality parts, impeccable. Just absolutely loved it. So that was my second best tube amplifier I've heard. And the third one, and these are not in specific order in terms of how great they were all equally great, but the third one I would say is the best one. And it's expensive, probably the most expensive one. And that was the Convergent Audio JL2. Now this is a beast. It's a monoblock, and easily, this is something I heard back in the store, easily it weighed 200, 300 pounds each. It was so heavy to lift. I blame all my back problems on that unit, but man, it sounded great. It sounded so good. In fact, it used a lot of tubes. So if something goes wrong, then you would have to change so many tubes. So very costly, but used, they are not that expensive for what you get. They're about, I would say, $8,000 or something like that in the used market. It depends on the used deal, but impeccable. And when I say impeccable, I'm talking about the mid-range and high frequency being amazing. I wouldn't say as great as the Decware or the Marantz. Still silky, but still it pops out at you. It's a little bit more defined than the ZMA and the Marantz 8B, but the mid-range and high frequency has that tube characteristic, large soundstage, really powerful, lots of headroom, and the bass. Never heard a tube amplifier with that kind of bass to this day. The bass pounded. In fact, I made a short video when I used to work at the store because I was so amazed with it. It had some stuff wrong with it, so it went in for repair and came back. It even sounded better after the repair. But the unit was just so amazing through and through. The bass, the mid-range, the high frequency, the sound stage, there's nothing for me to complain about. Really, I'm still looking for one to this day, but the only problem is that it's huge and heavy, and one of them will probably reduced a lot of the footprint in my listening room. It's really big. So yeah, one of the best experiences I've had. Of course, I can go on and on and on about other experiences I've had, and I might do that in a different video, but I want to keep this video short. So if you're interested in more of my experience with these tube amplifiers and such, then make sure to leave a comment and like this video so that I know that you guys liked it and I should do more of these. So that's pretty much it. I hope this video was helpful and entertaining to you. And if it was, again, please leave that like button on this video. It helps me a lot. It tells me that you guys are enjoying it. And make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.